want to check us out on all of our social media platforms, on Twitter at tinfoilhatcast, reddit.com/r/tinfoilhatshow,
on Instagram at tinfoilhatpod,
or allcomedyt-shirts.com.
email us at tinfoilhatpod@gmail.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Tinfoil Hat.
Tinfoil hat.
Tinfoil hat.
Come with me into the waters of conspiracy with Sam Tripoli.
Sam Tripoli.
Sam Tripoli.
Sam Tripoli.
Mr. Sam Tripoli. With my friend Ryan Davis.
Hi, Ryan.
We're
like
the
doing
first
this
gay
'cause-
couple of conspiracy theories.
I think it's beautiful, man.
Cool out there, partner. Say that again.
It's some mystical, deep, dark realm. Crazy shit.
Wake up, Aaron. There's reptile people everywhere.
Hey, man, we're spitting truth there, dog.
Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
Revolution will be podcasted.
Yes, and welcome back to Tinfoil Hat. You know who we are. You know what we're here to do, guys. We want to thank everybody for your support. I particularly would like to thank everybody who has been joining our Patreon. Our Patreon has just been exploding. We put up 2 last week. We'll have 1 this week. We'll try to put up 2. We're going to do the best we can, but thank you for your support. Also, go to allcomedyt-shirts.com. We are putting up new shirts all the time. We got a sweet Beavis and Butthead design that we're going to work out to get on the shirt. So, yeah, again, and if you have art that you would like to do for the show, we love all the art. Send it to us. We'll put it on. We'll put it on our Patreon. We'll put it on everything. You know, it will be Instagram, whatever. And then if we can, we'll make it into a shirt. So this is a show for the people, by the people. Okay. Joining me in studio is one of my. I don't want to say my oldest friend because she's not my oldest. One of my longest running friends. And this is how I know I'm getting old. Is everybody now has gray in their beard.
Oh, isn't that a bitch?
Yeah, we all have gray. This is how old I'm getting, dude. I have gray nose hairs. That is the sign
When
of
you
death.
get the gray pubes and you look at your penis, you're like, A2 penis? A2?
Joining me in studio, a good friend of mine. I don't know where I'd be without him. He helped get me into the Comedy Store. I love him to death. He's one of the funniest dudes. And literally, probably the only guy to have blown up and literally get nicer. I don't know anybody that got actually nicer as they got bigger, but he is the one. My good friend, Jobrani.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, snap away, snap away. That's
So
good.
thanks for coming on,
This
buddy.
shirt makes me look fat. Let me just kind of...
No, you don't look fat.
There
I
we
mean,
go.
you're a brave man. Be in your 40s wearing a white shirt. That's a
Bro,
brave man.
this is baby blue. Baby blue.
Oh, that's a blue.
Baby blue.
I'm growing old and colorblind.
And colorblind.
You know what? Baby blue to you?
You know what?
Periwinkle.
You know what's you just said about growing old and blind. I was throughout my life I've been around 175 to 185, just always.
How till when?
Just always throughout my life since I was like
Really?
in high school up until recently. I've always been 175, 185. Always kind of maintained that, whether it was like I was thinner or more muscle or just fatter or whatever it was. Always, and it always goes right to the belly area, right?
Yeah.
So recently I was. I hit like 189.
Oh, shit.
Which freaked me out because I go,
Panic.
oh shit, 190.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be 190. So I started trying to come down, and I would weigh myself like every couple days, and I was trying to eat right, and I was trying to exercise, and I was coming down, and we have one of those electric scales at the house, so I could stand on it, look down, and see the number. And then I went with my buddy. We went to the gym. And they didn't have the electric. They had the one where you like stand on it and the numbers are right here. So I was trying to read the number, and I couldn't. I had to like lean back because my eyes couldn't see the numbers. I go, oh shit, I'm worried about getting fat. I'm going blind.
Yeah. Fat and blind is a horrible way to go through life.
God.
Dude, the fact that you've been 190 this long is amazing.
Hey, bro, 175 to 185. Let's
Okay.
not go right to 190.
I did that TV show 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I've never been under 200.
Oh man.
I've been the whole time 200. What do you weigh, Ryan?
Man, I got an eating disorder for sure. I've been like, I'm like 160.
That's awesome. What's your height?
I'm like under 6 foot.
Like
No,
you
you
like
gotta be at
5'11"?
least-
I'm
I'm
5'11".
bony, man. Without this beard, I'm looking a little.
Yeah, but
too-
he's
a
also
little-
what, 35?
Yeah, I'm 37.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a baby, dude.
You know what it is it's like you. I mean, I sometimes I go, you know what, screw it, man. I'm not, you know, I'm decent, I'm fine. Well, even if you
You're
hit 190,
great.
but then like, you know, what? Just all it takes is one person to even inadvertently shame you. So like my little girl, she's 7 years old, and I was like hugging her or something, and then she just patted the belly.
Oh,
And she
happens
goes-
all the
She
time.
goes, Daddy, you're jiggly, and I was like, ah. So salads for the week.
When I got really fat, this one waitress came up to me. And I gained weight, but she gained a little weight too. And she started grabbing my gut, and like just out of nowhere, I just grabbed the side of her face right here and started wiggling it, and she just stared at me, and I was like, "You can't do that to a comic. You can't heckle a comic."
I knew
we
you
go
had
to
a Me
heckle
Too.
mode.
I knew there was a Me Too moment in
For
your
me,
life.
Yes.
I'm getting, like, dude, like Rogan said, there's only fat shaming on women. You can't fat shame.
It's gonna come out. He touched my third chin
Yeah.
I know,
without my permission.
Did anyone else feel bad for Bert during that whole fat shaming? I was like, man, you guys are taking it.
I felt bad until I just saw that it just helped them start selling out everything.
That's
you know,
hilarious.
dude. Those three guys, those four guys, marketing genius. But let's get into this.
Yeah.
Okay, so Maz, I wanted to bring you on to talk about this whole thing. Iran is a big thing.
Let's start with Iran.
I knew it was gonna Iran.
Iran.
Iran is it's in the news right now. It is once again the focal point of all that's wrong with the world.
Yeah.
The evil people.
Yes.
Now this time there's no axis of evil. There's just one evil dude.
Just Iran.
The other ones have all come and now they're on our side.
Yeah, we invaded
Right?
them and got rid of that, and then the other one we're working on, and this is the only one that's left.
So Iran.
Iran.
You are from, and the reason I wanted to talk to you is that we kind of talked before the show started was that you and I were in the Arabian Nights.
Yes.
Comedy Central thought it was too Americanized, and you guys became the Axis of Evil.
Well, no,
Comedy Club.
Arabian Nights was never pitched as the Arabian Nights. Arabian Nights was the name Mitzi Shore gave it
right,
originally,
right.
where she put in everyone that was brown, that was not Mexican or black,
She
was
thought
on our
I
show.
was Syrian, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm Syrian."
Well, I called you up. I was like, "Are you?" I go, "Your last name's Tripoli.
Yeah.
Are you Libyan?" And you were like, "No, I'm half Armenian." I go, "I think that'll work."
We go close enough.
We called them up, and they were like, "That works."
Yeah.
So you were in, and like Ahmed and Aaron Cater, and then there was like Anand Chulani, who was Indian, and then there was like some girl who was belly dancing that was white. It was
Yeah.
just crazy.
But you were great because on this one night, you got basically Ahmed in, myself in, and you were nice enough to hide in a closet, I think, somewhere, so Brett Ernst could get in.
Yeah.
And we became, and it was a glorious time for the Arabian Nights at the Comedy Store because people don't realize, like, we got spots every night.
Yes.
For forever.
She loved us because she first of all, Ahmed was in because he did one of those like rock and roll nights with Jay Davis, and
Yeah.
she saw him.
Yeah.
So she saw Ahmed. I called up Duncan, who was
Yeah.
booking, and I
You
said,
and
Duncan,
Duncan.
Sam is half Armenian. That got you in.
Yeah.
And then Brett Ernst was on a show where he was supposed to, and he was supposed to be up before me. And then Mitzi was there to see me,
Yeah.
as like part of her the guys that she wanted to see. So Mitzi was getting ready to leave, and so someone goes, "Mitzi wants you to go up next," and I go, I want her to see Brett. So tell them you couldn't find me.
Yeah.
So then Brett went up, killed it. He became a regular. Then I went up.
So you got in so many people.
Try,
dude.
you know what? Whatever we can do, bro. But
Yeah.
the Arabian Nights. So the Arabian Nights was this concept she had, which was because Mitzi's Jewish, and she'd been watching the news. She'd been watching CNN, and it was in 2000 when there was the Intifada with the Palestinian uprising against the Israelis, and she saw all this crazy conflict happening again. And she goes, "I think there's going to be a need for a positive voice for Muslims and Middle Easterners in
And
the
this
near
was
future."
about a year and a half before 9/11, right?
Before 9/11. So that's why she started giving us those shows, and then she really wanted us to develop. And she would talk to us, like she would say things to me like, "Oh my God, like this is gonna be great. Like the timing's great. Like you're gonna be like Richard Pryor, what he did for black people, you guys are doing for people from Middle Easterners." I mean, I was like, she was really like,
She was ahead of time.
I owe a lot of my career to her.
Yeah, I owe everything to her.
Yeah.
And we used to go down to La Jolla every month, which people don't realize. Like, you're lucky to do La Jolla once a year now.
Yeah.
Every month you're down there.
Yeah.
Every month. And we were just, it was a great time.
Yes.
We were very blessed. 9/11 happened, and we're all supposed to do a show in San Diego. I get a call or text from you guys. You're like, "Hey, you might not want to ride down with us,
Yeah.
because we have to go through the border." And I was like, "Oh, dude, I need material because like I come from the Doug Stanhope school of how to get comedy. It's like whatever you got to do to get a joke, go for it. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he's very famous. I remember him telling me a story about him dropping acid and getting hired to do gay phone sex, right? And he dropped acid and he just did gay, and it's like
Material.
it's brilliant, right?
Yeah.
So we went down there.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Right.
But the reason I want to get in with this,
Well, time out one second. One thing that did happen. Now, first of all, we might have said like, oh, we got to go through that like little checkpoint.
Which is the fruit checkpoint,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they make sure
Yeah.
you're not bringing in illegal fruit into California.
And we were so no, that's when you go from California. We're going down to San Diego. I think it was that truck not the truck, the one that, the secondary stop when you get into Mexico, they have a secondary stop. I'm sorry, when you get in from Mexico, then once you're going north on San Diego, they have a secondary stop. We might have been so paranoid that we thought we were going to get in trouble there somehow.
No, but it's like a fruit. It's basically
No, the fruit is when you cross the border of a state. That's when you go from Nevada to California. It goes, if you have strawberries, go to the right. You used to do a bit about that. We were like, I got my strawberries or whatever it was.
the fruit terrorist.
But what did happen one time, because Mitzi actually, after September 11th, she stopped using the name Arabian Nights for a while till it would cool down. And then the first time we went back after 9/11, it was like 6 months later, we went down to San Diego. They put Arabian Nights on the marquee. We got a call from the manager, go, we just got a death threat. He goes, we just got a death threat. Someone said, you're putting up these Arabs. We're going to come down there and kill them. And the manager goes, you guys still want to go on? And we go, you know what? We don't think it's a legit death threat. And as you said, Doug Stanhope's School of Comedy, we're like, well, if they try to kill us and we survive, that's some good material.
if I'm the one to survive, I got 10 new minutes, dude.
Yeah, I'm going to take that. They killed him. I get the material. Yeah.
That's how you know you guys are from the story. You're like, guns? Whatever.
Oh, dude, crazy. But so this brings us to the time we're performing at the Laugh Factory, and you just gotten done with one of your shows, and I gave you the name that I'm pretty proud of, Pelvis, Persian Elvis.
Yes.
Because I knew you. I go, Steve Renazizi and Maz Jobrani are going to be the two biggest comics that come out of this group. I just saw, and both you guys went on to do amazing things.
Thank you, Sam.
And both of them somehow involved 9/11, but that's okay. So you do the show, and afterwards you take pictures with everybody, and I watched as this one woman kind of cornered you and was asking about how come you're not talking enough about what's going on in Iran, okay?
Yes.
And I forgot what position she had.
Yeah.
Was it like F those guys, or you?
This
you
was
said
more. This
something
was
pretty-
more recent. This was more recent. So what's happened is, I'll tell you what's happened. This is the more recent level of conspiracy that happened. So, Iranians. Just a general background. In 79, there was a revolution, and the revolution brought in the Islamic Republic of Iran. So suddenly, these people who had been living under the Shah, myself included, my family included, who had been living in a society that was a little more westernized. And under the Shah, there was, he was a dictator. End of the day, so there was still some oppression, and so there were people that would maybe criticize him that were, let's say, socialists or even some religious types would criticize him, and sometimes it would disappear. Shah had the secret police, but under the Shah, it was not at all as crazy as it got under Khomeini, because Khomeini came in under the promise of, everyone's going to now be able to enjoy the wealth and all this other stuff. But Khomeini came in, and then they made it an Islamic Republic of Iran. So suddenly, whereas women, like if you see pictures from the 70s and 60s in Iran, women are walking around with like mini skirts, and they're very westernized and listen to disco. There's movies. As a kid, I remember I saw Rocky in Iran. I saw the movie Rocky in Iran. I had Spider-Man comics. It was very westernized, or I should say, at least it was in the world fold of like, we had Western influence, but we also had Iran, we had our culture.
Yeah, you had your culture, but with a Western
So
flag.
what happens is, it comes in, this Islamic Republic comes in, and then they are totalitarian states. Suddenly women got to cover themselves up. Suddenly no alcohol. Suddenly no Western influence. And if you're, let's say, whatever, walking down the street with a girl, if the morality police want to stop you and say what's going on and throw you in prison, they can't. And they're really just like it's crazy. Like freedoms are gone. So that's this current government. And so throughout these past 40 years, since 79 till now, the government at times has been a little more, like, it's moved towards being a little more moderate. And the only reason that's happened is because the young people in Iran now are not as religious as those zealots who had taken over back then.
Right.
And these guys want their freedoms. And so we've had times, for example, in 2009 when there was an election and there was a lot of people saying that the government stole the election. So people went out in the streets like 1 million strong protesting.
Right.
Then the government showed up and just started shooting people. So the fact is this government is oppressive.
Right.
There's a lot of human rights violations, women's rights violations, gay rights. You name it, they do it. They're not a good government, all right? Now, with that said, there are Iranians in the West and outside of Iran who want to get rid of this government, all right? So there's 3 minds here. One mind, at least that I, I'm sure there's many mindsets, but 3 of them, 3 groups. One group is, who I think is a majority of Iranians outside of Iran, they would like for this government to change, the Islamic Republic to change and become more free, become more modern, and open up more. But they want, and myself included, want that to come in a way where it comes from within. So that the change, so that the government right now realizes, oh, we need to give more freedoms to these young people. And suddenly, maybe it's not, you don't have to be religious to be in the government. Suddenly, there's more of a maybe there's a separation of church and state, but without bloodshed. Then there's these groups who go, you're an idiot for saying that, you're a pacifist, you're doing what Chamberlain did with Hitler, you're letting these guys get away. We need to have America attack Iran. And that's like, there's a lot of hawks.
They're called the Hawks.
The Hawks, like, hawks versus doves, right? So the Hawks want war. So there are a lot of...
Sounds like a musical about gangs.
Exactly, yeah.
When you're a hawk, you're a hawk all the way to your...
Exactly. So there's a lot of like hawkish Israelis like Netanyahu, who's pushing for America to attack Iran, or at least let Israel attack Iran. There are people who still support the Shah, who feel, because the Shah has a son who lives in Boston, they feel that he should go back and rule.
Talk to his dad.
Well, his dad's passed away, so he should go rule the government now.
Right.
Which they also are very hardcore. If you say, oh, we should find a way to get change from within, they go, you're an idiot, you're supporting the regime, you're supporting the Islamic Republic, and therefore they come at you. And the other one is there's something called the MEK, which is actually has been...
Sounds like a dubstep band,
DJ? They're actually remember the Mujahideen? Which was, so they're another group of Mujahideen who have been... they've been called the terrorist organization.
Yeah.
They are Muslim and I believe communist. And so these groups want America to attack, or they want to foment some sort of war, and they don't care about the collateral damage that's going to cause in Iran. They just want to get rid of the mullahs. So that lady who approached me that night when I was doing the show, I think a lot of people get upset at me that are Iranian when I make fun of Donald Trump. And the reason is they go, why are you making fun of Donald Trump? He's a strong man who's going to help overthrow this government. Obama was a pussy because he made that deal with them. And also they go, Obama gave them all that money, which, by the way, the money actually was Iran's money in the first place. But he returned the money as part of the deal for the nuclear deal.
Right.
So these people get upset at me, and then they go one step further. They go, you should be making fun of the Islamic Republic of Iran in your act. And I've had some conversations with them, and I said, guys, there's a couple of problems here.
Yeah.
Number one is I don't follow the day-to-day politics coming out of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I don't
You
know.
don't get IranToday.com?
I don't follow
you don't go on it?
Number one.
Are you following Iran on Twitter?
Number one, exactly. And number two is that I said a lot of my audience is not just Iranians, and they're not Iranians who are, again, as well aware of what's going on in Iran. My audience, if you come to my regular shows, there's white people and there's Indians and there's Asians and there's everybody, right? So if I go up and I go half the time, if I go up and say blah, 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 Iran, my audience doesn't know the difference.
They just stare at you.
They don't know what Iran and Iraq is in America. They don't even know the difference.
Yeah.
So, and furthermore, I talk about what is on my mind. So let's say in the news something were to happen in Iran that I felt I could turn into a joke that would work, I would do it. And as a matter of fact, I do that. I've recently started doing this joke about how, and this is true, I saw these videos on Twitter, Iranian women protesting against the government by taking off their cover, their hijab, and videotaping themselves and going, we want to have a choice. We shouldn't have to wear this.
It's so interesting when you hear that, because it is the level of bravery that it takes to do that is so insane. And then you have chicks in the West, in particular America, and I love women, but it's like the no makeup filter where they're like, they put their picture on Instagram like no makeup, so brave. And you're like,
Yeah.
that's not brave. I do that every day of my life.
Yeah.
Every day I take a picture of me with no makeup on.
Yeah.
To actually like go in a place and not have your what's it called?
Hijab.
The
Hijab.
That like you could disappear.
Absolutely. So there's actually been videos of these women taking it off, and then like some moral police or somebody confronting them, and they've like yelled back at them. And I mean, because the thing is, listen, these people in Iran really have had it. Like these young people, because they imagine there's a high unemployment rate, there's high addiction rate. There's no opportunities for them, and then they don't have their freedoms, and then you have the internet, so they're seeing the rest of the world living their lives as they want to. So good for these young people for being able to do this, and like you said, it takes a lot of balls
It's
to do
bravery,
this.
dude.
It is bravery. So when I find something that I can bring to the attention of an audience and do it in a way that gets a point across, then I do it. But this thing of like, why aren't you making fun of, like, for example, I mean, the Islamic Republic, like they've hung people, and they do a lot of this thing where they arrest people and they go, you're a spy. Here you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Over there you're a spy until you prove you're not.
Except if you're accused of sexual harassment, then you lose all your shit, and then your career's fucking
Sexual
over.
harassment until you're proven not guilty. But the point is, real quickly, is what's interesting to me is, so that lady and some people on social media do this to me too. They accuse me, because there's also, just a side note, there's an organization in America called NIAC, National Iranian American Council.
Oh.
I describe them as like the NAACP of Iranians. Whenever something happens to an Iranian in the West, they're the first ones to like complain about it, get it out there, fight for the rights of Iranians. So what happened was, they'd been doing a lot of stuff domestically, and when Bush and company went into Iraq, there was a discussion about further going into Iran. Yeah. So NIAC took a poll from their members and said, do you want us to not lobby, but do you want us to push for diplomacy with Iran, or do you want us to push for regime change? And a lot of the supporters or members of NIAC had said, we want diplomacy, because we don't want a war with Iran, because a war with Iran would kill 100,000, 200,000, a million innocent people.
It would be bad.
It would be really dirty and ugly, and people would die in Iran that were innocent, and people would die outside of Iran, because Iran has their hands in a lot of places.
Right.
So with all
Well,
that
also, real quick, show me a place that has gotten better with us going in.
doesn't.
They never get better. I mean, for everybody's like, dude, we want the U.S. to come in and put it in. It doesn't get better. It doesn't make the invading forces, it's not in their best interest to have stability there. What's in their best interest is chaos.
Yeah.
So nobody focuses on anybody. And you see it here in this country. Everybody is at each other's throats right now, because you just have a different view of the world.
Yeah.
And now, so nobody's focusing on we're worried about children in cages, which is sad.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not, but as we all focus on the kids in cages, $180 billion military increase goes on quietly, and nobody, because they put a cool name on it.
Yeah.
Star Force, which is a ripoff of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And you don't focus on it. So it's everyone's at each other's throats.
Yeah.
Nobody's really focusing
Well,
on what's
that's what
going
they
on.
did. If you look at all the contracts that they got out of the Iraq War, they made a lot of money. They got a lot of contracts out of it. But you also got to say what came out of the Iraq War was ISIS, and it also was a lot of innocent, hundreds of thousands, million Iraqis innocent.
It's over
dead.
a million.
Yeah, whatever that number is. So you got to look at it like that. And I think that because NIAC and others have said we don't want war with Iran, they point at you and they go, then you are in cahoots with the mullahs. So online, a lot of times, if I criticize the Trump administration, or if I say I'm for diplomacy, because my idea with the Iran deal was, it wasn't perfect, but I said we tried 40 years of yelling at each other. Let's try a little bit of diplomacy. Let's see if we can bring this current government of Iran into the world fold. And if we bring them in and the economy still doesn't improve, which it was not going to improve that much because their management of the economy is bad. So still, I feel that what would have happened is that the people that have been skimming off the top,
corruption,
they would have continued to do it. And then the people there then would, if they were to protest or revolt, then the government would have no one to point a finger to. When we have these sanctions on them, anytime somebody protests, they go, well, the reason we're not able to give you guys jobs and wealth and everything is because the sanctions of America. It's all on America. But if you turned around and tried diplomacy, then they couldn't have pointed at America. They would have said it's our mismanagement, right? So with all this stuff in mind, what they did was, a lot of people started doing these, like tying the guy who heads NIAC loosely in like articles and stuff saying, oh, he's connected to somebody in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And then because
that would be called a shill.
Exactly.
I get called the gay Jew shill constantly on the
So
show.
because of that, then if I support anything that NIAC is saying, then they go, I am also. So these guys will straight up be like, oh, he's in with the mullahs. Now here's the irony of it all. So there's a group of people that want to start war with Iran who think that I am somehow in with the mullahs, and I haven't really what's the word? I don't engage because
You can't,
they're just nutty. Because all you have to do is look at my history. I have openly criticized the Islamic Republic of Iran. When the 2009 election happened and there was a lot of protests around the world, there's a picture of me. You know how Facebook sends you a picture going,
Facebook
oh, this was
memories?
7 years ago?
Yeah.
So it sent a picture of me with a shirt that says Free Iran. I'm hosting a human
You're about
rights event.
175 then?
Exactly, 175. I'm hosting a human rights event.
Yeah.
So what I've said is, and this is what's funny, is these people that say I'm in cahoots with the government of Iran, I've said that if I go back to Iran, I honestly feel that the government would arrest me, because it would be like, you've criticized us, you have been online saying things about us, and they can find that stuff. So what's interesting is, so this side is saying that I'm a spy of some sort for them. A friend of mine, this guy named Jason Rezaian, who is a reporter for the Washington Post, he was in Iran and he got taken into prison.
What?
Yes. This was a big thing. He was on the Anthony Bourdain episode.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's this guy. He grew up in the Bay Area. He'd moved to Iran. He was living there as a Washington Post reporter. He was in prison for like a year or so, and he told me that in one of his interrogations, my name came up. And
God.
They told him that I was in with the Israeli lobby.
Oh,
So
my God.
they think I'm a spy for the Jews, and these guys think I'm a spy for the Muslims. And in the middle, I'm just trying to tell jokes, sometimes being political.
Maz, that was something we really talked about too back in the day, about like the pressure and the danger sometimes of what you're doing, because you have still family over there, right? And like you could say something that, I mean, we're seeing it right now in Turkey with this
Erdogan.
cancer, right? His dad got arrested. And he's saying it's because he's been so active against the Turkish government that they've arrested his father. He's like a center for the New York Knicks. And that's some real stuff, man, that like, I remember you kind of use it to get out of Mitzi telling you to dress like a genie or some shit like that. But the truth of the matter is like there's real ramifications if the joke is taken the wrong way.
Absolutely. And what you realize is that you can't, first of all, you can't please everybody. I'm just a comedian trying to be funny. Like I would never, like I have political opinions. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is when people go, stick to comedy. I go, you know what? Shut the fuck up.
Why did it, there's people, and I'm not going to say their name, these very big, these big celebrities who like get political, but it's like when they do it, it's not smart at all.
Right.
And it annoys people, but like, why should a guy who's basically created like $1 million, $2 million brand talk about? Why should Joe the plumber?
Absolutely.
Why, and nothing against people who do plumbing, but why does one job warrant somebody talking, another job doesn't?
We all should be able to express our opinions. That's the beauty of this country, and I just keep reiterating that. Even when people criticize me for criticizing Trump, or they used to under the Bush administration, I was doing jokes about Bush at the Comedy Store, and some girl was in the front. She's like, I'm in the military. You can't make fun of our commander-in-chief.
What is that?
I go, that's the whole point. I go, we're going into Iraq saying that we want to bring democracy into Iraq, and now you're telling me I can't practice democracy in America?
Stupid people ruin everything.
It's crazy. And the fact is, look, the comedians that I like are the Richard Pryors and the George Carlins and
Sam Tripoli.
Sam Tripoli's.
Thank you.
And so I like, listen, I if you see my act, I talk about political stuff, I talk about kid stuff, and I talk about silly stuff. So there's a fart joke in there, but there's also a joke about Trump and his travel ban, because that's real to me. I went down to the protests on the travel ban. And now people, what I want to tell these people, and I do tell this sometimes, like that lady who confronts me after a show, my message to them is always like, if you don't like what I'm saying, then go start your own blog. Yeah. This is my opinion. This is who I am. 46 years old. These are my opinions. This is where I stand. I grew up in Northern California. I'm very liberal. I'm going to have a lot of liberal ideas. And the fact is that I want to criticize Trump. He gets under my skin, and that's the topic that I'm on right now. Now, if another topic comes to mind, and I'm not here taking your request. You can't come to me and be like, "Why don't you make fun of?"
Yeah, you're not a jukebox.
Yeah, why do you make fun of the interior minister of Iran? I'm like, who is the interior minister? I don't know who that person
what's up
is.
with Shamaka Khalid?
Exactly.
What? For 100%. I mean, like, I do feel right now politically is probably one of the best times to talk politics. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. 3 years ago, I think if you bring politics, you could literally hear the crowds like engine seize up,
Yeah.
like you didn't oil it. They're
Yeah.
like, I do feel now is more open to political talk than it was before. I do feel that we're living in dangerous times right now. I mean, we see right now today, there was this whole thing on Instagram or social media. They were showing like protests in Iran, and then when people break it down, that's a picture from another country at another time. One of the signs are in English,
Yeah.
and you're like, why would it be in English? Well,
See, and that's another reason why, because I'll once in a while get someone tweeting me something going like, why aren't you supporting the protests in some city in Iran? And I usually go and Google it because I'm like, I like exactly what you just said. I don't know who this person is. I don't know how legit this is. Let me read it. Let me see who's protesting why. Because sometimes like the protests are like it's the hardliners protesting for the government to be more hardline.
Yeah.
So if I retweet that and go support the protest, then these people are going to come back going, oh, see, he wants the country to be more hardline. And really, there should be a page like almost a Wikipedia page, but a personal statement page. You know, in your resume, you used to put personal statement like desire to excel in marketing and one day run a company, whatever it is. There should be a personal statement page where you could go put your personal statement and be like, this is how I feel about Trump. This is how I feel about the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is how I feel, blah, 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 blah. If you have any questions, go look at that.
Yeah.
That's the statement, and it's public, and then let's move on. So stop accusing me of supporting the regime. I don't support the government, and don't come at me with your stuff because I don't know what's legit, what's not. But once it's legit, or once I see somebody who I follow, let's say, for example, my buddy, again, the reporter, if he posts something, then I go, okay, this guy's probably done his research.
you know where he's coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get that a lot. We get that a lot on the show. Things I tweet, I get told later, this isn't real. Now, the Obama administration had passed a propaganda law, which stated that the U.S. government can use propaganda against the citizens of the United States. And one of Brett Ernst's poor judgments was to say we should use propaganda against our and everybody collectively went, what? It's good. Propaganda's good. Nobody's ever said in the history of time.
Well, the unfortunate thing, whether it's legal or not, or there's a government behind it or whatever, it's just there now. I mean, it's there.
It's done now without any
crazier than ever.
Yeah, I mean,
because like if you look at like those Nazi films and stuff now, you look at it, you go, well, how could somebody fall for that?
Yeah.
But whatever was going on then, and the rah fervor that was going on, then they would see it and they'd be like, oh, this sounds pretty objective.
I think at some point they realize the internet is so big they can't control it. I mean, the EU right now is trying to basically censor the internet. What they're doing right now is they're creating a program where everything you post has to go through an AI, and it will tell you whether it is illegal or like hate speech or whatever,
legit or not,
which
right.
is the scariest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the big push behind this is Israel. They've stated it before. They have a ton of people on Wikipedia who basically go through everything, and just if they don't like it, they think it's negative, they go through and change.
Here's what's crazy about that, because when YouTube, for example, found out that there was a lot of hate groups that had videos online, whether it was ISIS or skinheads or Nazis or whatever, and advertisers were advertising on there, so then YouTube freaked out and said, we're really going to scrutinize all of our clips. Mm-hmm. Well, I have Lance Patrick runs my social media.
Oh, I love Lance.
Yeah, Lance is great, and he was like, "Listen, let's get your YouTube whatever." And there was another guy named Cyrus who was helping out before too. And so we just started taking my stand-up clips and putting them up. The clips that had already aired on Showtime or whatever, and now it's like they're just sitting there. Let's just put them on YouTube and let's monetize them.
Right.
So we'd put them up, and he would come back and be like, we're getting flagged. And now the reason we're getting flagged was, so for example, one bit that I did was I was talking about how like watching soccer is like having sex, in that like you have to watch it from the beginning because it builds up, and there's all these fake like oh off the post, think of dead rabbits, so the fact that in the title it said sex, I think it raised a red flag.
Oh, for sure, dude.
And we're like, what the hell? So what happens?
banned.
Yeah, so this stuff starts
Shadow banned.
Or like I would do something about like, I do jokes about something, blah, blah, blah. Like one of the titles of my specials is I'm not a terrorist, but I've played one on TV. The word terrorist.
Oh yeah, gonna get lit up.
I'm like, what the heck? So the joke has, it's not at all offensive or whatever, but it's getting flagged.
The YouTube channel that I have, which we put all of our posts on, has 20,000 subscribers, which is great. And but I'm still not monetized. I can't get monetized.
Right.
Because the subject that we talk about on this show leads to that. And this is the beginning of like their attempt to control the information. It's gotten so bad. I think it's blood in the water. I think they can come up for every move you make. There's going to be someone who finds a way to counter that move.
Absolutely.
But what I want to get into real quick is the whole thing is that with a lot of this stuff that we're dealing with in what's going on in Iran, is there a dark hand involved? Is there a dark hand of people who want to destabilize Iran and basically get the world to hate it? And there's we call it the deep state. A lot of people call it the deep state. Some people don't want to get into that. I personally think the deep state involves bankers, the CIA, FBI, Mossad, MI6, right? Is
MI6.
Yeah, MI6, this group of, and not everybody in these organizations are a part of it. They're
Right.
always just a small, like super passionate group of people who basically work for an invisible hand to control and get certain outcomes that will help them.
Sure.
And that's kind of what got us into is like Project AJAX, which is
Right.
a very weird thing because, this show is about conspiracies, but kind of we all talked about before, this isn't a conspiracy. This has actually been proven the CIA has in fact owned up to it.
So a couple of things. Going back to all these people and the interest in all this stuff, as we said before, whether it's like the Iran nuclear deal where one side is going, let's try diplomacy, the other side is going, let's go to war. There's also been, somebody was pointing this out, was that these hawks, the current hawks are, somebody was telling me that their goal is to do what Saddam Hussein had wanted to do with Iran. Iran is actually this country that has many different ethnicities within it. There's Kurds, and then there's like Turks, and then there's people from like the south.
There's Shiites and Sunnis, right?
Yeah, it's mostly Shiite. Religious-wise, mostly Shiite, but there's a lot of people that aren't even religious there. And but Sunnis.
What
would
is
be
the difference
minority.
between Shiites and
Sunni?
Sunnis?
It's kind of like saying the best way to say it is like Catholic and Protestant, right? One of them believes that Islam goes, that the lineage should go one way, and the other one believes the lineage should go the other way. So Iran is the biggest Shiite country.
And Saudi Arabia is the biggest Sunni country.
yeah.
But then you go to Iraq, it's a lot of Shiites, but it was ran by a Sunni, which was Saddam Hussein, who controlled the area and made it very, like, I don't want to say atheist, but non-religious. That was a big thing.
Well, I don't know if I'm not sure how religious it was. He was a dictator who was, he was Sunni, so there was a minority Sunni country running a majority Shiite country, which just to kind of branch off for a second, leads me to believe that the Bush administration was up to something when they went into Iraq to lift Saddam Hussein out. If they're saying that their first enemy is Iran, even back then they were saying Iran is behind a lot of stuff. Someone with basic political science knowledge would go, wait a minute, you're taking the one guy who's holding control with 20% of Sunnis, you're lifting him out, and you're going to have 80% Shiite, and the neighbor next to him is the biggest Shiite country, who's your biggest enemy. You're playing into the Iran's hand, like the overthrow of Saddam Hussein. Saddam was an enemy of Iran, so the overthrow of Saddam actually played into Iran's hands. So if somebody really wants to talk about conspiracy, you got to go. So the Bush administration must have known that they were doing that. Now the question becomes, why did they do that? Possibly, like you said, more chaos, more contracts. Possibly because it was their end. They had Afghanistan, then they had Iraq. Now they got Iran surrounded. They wanted to go into Iran. I'm not sure what exactly it was, but those are all theories.
Well, there's also the General McCarthy. What's his name? General the hammer and the nail. What's his name?
Schwarzkopf?
What? Wesley Clark, hammer and nail.
Yeah.
After 9/11, he goes there, and they're like, "Hey, dude, it's even worse than we thought. Here is the list of all the countries going to go in there. We are currently now bombing most of those. That group."
Yeah.
You take that list and you coordinate it with the list of countries that did not have Federal Reserves, centralized banks at the time.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same list.
Yeah.
Then we get into the petrodollar, what we see with Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan. is this desire to get off the petrodollar and back oil by gold, which is a big no-no. Now, we've seen this now with China has now, they basically back it either by gold or back it by the yen or whatever China's money is, and that's a big blow to the United States.
Yeah.
A big blow, and I personally think this is a big reason why within 2 years we've seen a giant jump in military spending, even though the rest of the world can't even compete with us.
Can't even compete. Yeah.
We just keep growing.
Yeah.
And, Operation AJAX, it's very interesting, with everybody yelling about the Russian collusion and all that stuff. I personally, I think we could break down why Hillary didn't get these votes. It is what it is. That's not really the point of this thing. But Operation AJAX was the CIA basically coming in.
So real quick, sorry, I just want to finish. The one thing was that so Iran has all these different groups, right? So one of the Saddam's thing, and now the Hawks here, in an effort to not attack Iran, they are also, there's a theory going on of fomenting conflict within, so they can cause a civil war within Iran. Let them kill each other, just like in Syria.
Now, who is doing this?
This is the current group of hawks that want to go to war with Iran.
Here in the United States.
The ones that I told you earlier, whether it's like the Netanyahu Israelis or it's those the pro-Shahs or the MEKs or whatever they are. One of the theories is that they want to take a play out of Saddam Hussein's book, which is let's just foment war in there. Let's get these different groups to fight each other and separate Iran into 5 different countries because there's all these different ethnicities, right? So now if you take that all the way back to the 53 coup, which is Operation AJAX. Operation AJAX was interesting because, it's the history of Iran is so interesting because you pick Iran, you can pick, some of these other countries like, some South American countries, other countries in the Middle East. You just see how they get in a way, and then they find ways to control and to play ball. You've read Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Oh yeah, great
book, right? And so AJAX, what had happened was that the West had been after World War I, the Shah's dad, who had been a general in World War I, he became the monarch in Iran, and the Western powers were good with him, and he was fine. And in terms of the Western, where the West stood. And back then, England was still the superpower, and so they'd already set up their oil company. They knew there was oil in Iran, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure what the percentage was, but they were getting a lot of oil and a lot of resources out of Iran. Then what happens is, as World War II starts happening, now Iranians, the word Iran comes from the word Aryan. We are we come from the Caucasus Mountains. We're the original Aryans.
Armenians are like that too.
Yes.
People, you're not white. I'm from the Caucasus Mountains, you asshole.
Exactly. So we are, ethnically speaking, we're Aryan. And so it's interesting because, not Aryan nation, but we're Aryan, ethnically speaking. So as World War II comes and there's Hitler and Mussolini, suddenly this Reza Shah, the father, he would be the grandfather of the current guy who's still alive. He starts saying I'm kind of like what these guys are talking about.
Mussolini and Hitler.
Mussolini and Hitler. The white power sounds about right to me. So then the West goes. Then the West with Iran. With the U.S. and England and stuff. They go, we can't have that. So then they make a deal with him. They go, this is what we're going to do. You're going to be put into exile, and we're going to let your son be the king. And that was the young Shah. The young Shah had been educated in Western schools. I think it was Switzerland or somewhere, but he was very, came up very posh and just Western educated in the sort. So he was 21 years old when he was put into power in Iran. Yeah. So there's all
That's
this.
some LeBron James shit right there.
LeBron James shit, exactly. So there's all this amazing footage of this young guy with a sword. They made it all something, There's I think there's mid 40s, after World War II. Mid to late 40s. He's walking in with a sword, and there's all these people standing there, but he's got all these advisors that are
old hawks.
Well, they're the guys who are going to tell him how to run the country, right?
Right.
So you've got the monarchy at the time who is playing ball with the West, and the West continues to have their oil in, they continue to take the oil from Iran, and by the West I do mean it was called, I think it was BP, British Petroleum. So what happens is Iran also has a parliament, and just like in England right now in England the monarchy is just the government's run by the parliament, not by the monarchy, but the monarchy does have some power, but
there's a discussion that she technically owns more land than anybody else outside of the Catholic Church.
Right. But their political power right now is more symbolic. They're not passing laws or whatever. Maybe they advise or whatever, but still, Parliament's supposed to do that stuff.
That's what
right?
the belief is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Of course.
So Iran had a similar thing. You had the monarchy, and then you had the parliament. And so the monarchy with the Shah, the young Shah now, and then his father gets exiled. His father, I think, passed away in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken. And it's kind of a sad ending because he was supposed to, like, back then, you don't get on a plane, you get on a boat. And he was supposed to go somewhere. Yeah, he's supposed to go somewhere, and like Shah was supposed to send money, and like the money never came, or something happened where like the guy basically like passes away, kind of forgotten, the father.
Yeah.
So now the Shah's
My grade
there.
is fair.
Yeah, exactly. So the Shah's in there, right? And so he's got symbolic power, and he's got the West behind him. Then there's the parliament, and there's a guy who's the head of parliament named Mohammad Mossadegh, and that's the name.
I'm so glad you're here because
Yeah.
I knew I was going to butcher all
Exactly.
these names.
Yeah. So Mossadegh is this professor, this older guy who heads parliament, and he's the one who says to the parliament and to Iran, he goes, "Hey, why do the British have our oil? We should nationalize our oil and kick the Brits out."
That's where the beginnings.
That's
of
the beginning of the end. Yeah.
starts.
So he manages to do that. Now
Now
where,
it passes with majority too, right? Like a huge
yeah, the
majority
parliament
voted for this.
Yeah, the parliament supports them because a lot of Iranians go, yeah, why are we giving all our stuff to because what would happen is, basically they called the Shah a puppet, and they were saying like the Shah was getting richer and what have you, but playing ball with the West. And this guy was telling the West to just basically go fuck yourselves, get out of here.
Yeah.
And so the other backdrop that's happening now is, this is now early 50s. We've got the Cold War going, right? So you got Russia that's trying for communist power and influence, and America who's trying to get capitalistic influence, right? So Russia's on the border with Iran, and Iran is a very important country, A, because of the oil, but B, because of its location. It's got access to a sea, and it's got also the Persian Gulf, I should say, and it's right there on the border of Russia. So
it would be like what on Monopoly. What would they be? Like a Park Avenue?
they're not quite. Park Avenue and Boardwalk would be like Russia and the U.S., but it would be one of those like big ones leading into.
You
right?
need it to get the $200.
So what happens is the Brits come to the Americans. This is Operation AJAX. The Brits come to the Americans and they go, look, this dude Mossadegh is nationalizing oil. But more importantly, because they realize the Americans might not care as much about that because it was British oil, but they go, what Americans will care about is the Cold War, the whole domino theory. So they go, if this guy Mossadegh takes over, he is very leftist. He's like a socialist. And the communists are going to take over because there was a communist party. Iran had all the different parties. So they go, if you guys don't get rid of this guy, Iran's going to go communist. So that's when the Americans go, oh shit, we can't let that happen. And there's a book written by Kermit Roosevelt, who is like I don't know if he's like the nephew or something of Teddy Roosevelt, one of the Roosevelts. Yeah. He supposedly was the mastermind behind it. And they came up with this whole thing because what happened was, so when Mossadegh nationalizes oil,
he did do it.
He nationalized oil, and the Shah, the young Shah, feels the heat, and he goes, "Oh, this isn't good." He's losing power fast, so he goes, "I'm going on vacation to Rome." So he gets like his wife, and they take off, like they're gone because they're like, "We're out of here."
Yeah,
because they felt like something was going to happen.
Something's coming.
Yeah, there was going to be a revolution. The palace was going to be overthrown, and then suddenly the monarchy would be gone, right? And Iran could have been a democratic government without a monarchy, possibly, right? So while he's gone is when the English, with the CIA, they go in and they do the coup d'etat of 53, which is they go in the streets and they have CIA operatives starting protests.
Yep.
And they're going, we're anti-Mossadegh, we don't want to go two-day. The party was called the two-day party. We don't want to go two-day. We don't want to go communist, blah, 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 blah. So then suddenly people rush Mossadegh, like his residence, and they pull him out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so they pull him out, and then he's got to go live in exile because there's this thing. And then the Brits and
They
the
pulled him out and beat him, or they like, hey, you gotta get out of here.
I think I'm not sure exactly. I actually was reading a book. There's a great there's this professor at Stanford University. His last name is Milani, Milani, Abbas Milani. He wrote a book. It's really thick. I was reading it, and it had like the beat by beat. I don't think they actually physically harmed Mossadegh. I think they just were like, look, there's tanks coming and there's protesters coming.
We see this whole thing has played out after this as well. I mean, that is the playbook of Iraq. I mean, there was all talks about how these protests of these people in the streets pulling down, not real. Like, they broke it down like, this is not what these people do. These people aren't from it. Where do they come from? They all show up. Now, here we get into the tinfoil hat area. A very famous report called Red Line, Rat Line, which it basically breaks down that there was this accusation within Syria was gassing his own people.
Right.
And then the UN got in there quickly because they saw what was happening, because they saw it had happened in Iraq. They go and they test the chemicals. It's not serious chemicals. They're actually similar to the chemicals that were taken from the same thing that went on in Libya, which was basically, it's the famous quote from Hillary Clinton, we saw, he died. And it was basically they'd gone in and they raided his war chest, and some of it was chemical weapons. And those were the chemical weapons that were found in there, and therefore, before action could be taken, they were said, this is not the chemicals that he'd given up.
Right.
And so we see Red Line, Rat Line, which is the whole story of why is this guy Brennan die at that? Is it last name Brennan die in that?
The Benghazi attack?
Yeah, the Benghazi.
Yeah,
why
was,
is this guy
was
die?
that Holbrook or was that, I forget who that was. Yeah, I forget the name. But
We'll
yeah.
get the name in 2 seconds.
Yeah, the
but
ambassador.
This guy dies, and everyone's like, he kept asking for more security. He kept asking for all this shit. It never came. And that, to me, is what the real issue of Benghazi is. I think they put out the email thing so people dismiss it. But did they leave this guy out to dry? Because he knew, and we found this out later on, that we had funded. I mean, if you look at Al-Qaeda, dude, I mean, it's basically come out that Al-Qaeda was used by us to fight the Russians in Afghanistan.
They were the Mujahideen. They were the Mujahideen fighters. And we helped fund some of that.
So
of course.
ISIS is the exact same thing. I mean, I didn't have time to look it up, but Trump had ended the funding of ISIS, and then quietly later on, it was put out. Now you talk about the videos of ISIS and all that stuff. Later on, an anonymous source comes out that the U.S. government had paid a British PR company to make these propaganda videos. Because I was like, dude, who is ISIS's social media guy? That guy is freaking killing it. And
Right.
they go back and they start and they go all the way back to the email, and the email is located in the British Parliament.
Right.
Of the guy who's running these things. So this is something we see where an outside hand, and it's so funny, we get so angry when these Russians, they're meddling in our elections, and we
Right.
just have full on thrown coups in here, all based on the oil and the inability to let somebody run their own shit.
Well, you know what's interesting? First of all, I used to do this bit where I said, if you have oil, it's like being a drug dealer. You got to know when to get rid of the shit.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, the Americans are coming, flush it down the toilet. They're coming. Because, I heard somebody say when this whole debate started with the Russian collusion and everything, somebody was like, we know the Russians were doing stuff to affect this election because we've done shit like that.
Yeah.
We've done shit big, and that's what I was saying about all these different countries. We find ways, that the Operation AJAX was one of the most successful, because a lot of times these guys, they have these plans and they're a little bumbling, which is when you read about it, you go, how could that guy go to a bar and tell some waitress that he was about to go overthrow Manuel Noriega or whatever the thing is, right?
Right.
So we hear stuff like that. AJAX was one that actually worked. And then America apologized for it under Clinton. Clinton was like, because the papers came out, like the New York Times, like I think they printed something where it was a big document that showed that this had happened. And Clinton actually apologized for it. Because a lot of Iranians point to that now and they go, and I actually do a little bit in there, because the bit I do is I go, I go, as a parent now, I got a lot to worry about. Like this past year, I told my son Santa doesn't exist, and it was really hard. But he actually
my next door neighbor told me that. I got so pissed at her.
That's
dude.
funny, dude. How old were you? Do you know how old you were?
I was like super young.
Oh, that's funny.
She's like, Santa doesn't exist, Sam. What are you talking about? I'm like, what? My
no.
shattered. I'm
Yeah.
like, now I got a drug problem.
Yeah.
You know, shit's getting
Yeah.
weird. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lois.
Well, my son figured it out. My son asked me, he's like, well, let me ask you a question. He goes, if Santa exists, why did I see the gift he gave me the night before in the trunk of your car? I was like, oh, shit. I go, Santa must have broken into my car, put the toy in there, and then taken it out.
I think that's going to be what happens when kids start doing math and realize that most likely their parents hooked up on some Tinder date and got like knocked up right out the gate. You're
Hilarious.
like, you ever do that where you do the numbers and you're like, you got married here, this kid's this old.
Yeah.
So you guys were pregnant when it.
Someone just told me a story about he had his friend. He goes, my friend had never had sex, and then there was this one girl who was like having sex with everybody.
Oh,
and
somebody
then he had,
always knocks that chick
Yeah, he
up.
had sex with her, and then he goes, then they had to get married because he was very religious, and then now they're like happily married with 3 kids. And I go, so when he tells the story, he's got to be like, son, your mom was a slut. So,
Son, your mom was a Tom Bike. Everybody rode her.
so getting back to the joke I was doing, and this is what I was saying, was like, so the Santa thing, and I go, I don't remember when my parents told me Santa didn't exist, but I think it was on our flight leaving Iran at the revolution coming to America, because I specifically remember when I was in America, I remember like in the 2nd or 3rd grade, I was telling the other kids there's no Santa. So someone had told me along the way. So in the joke, I go like, this guy Peter was writing a letter to Santa. I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm writing a letter to Santa Claus. I go, Santa doesn't exist. He goes, yes, he does. I go, bro, Santa's not real. Yes, he is. I just came from the revolution. There's no Santa. And I go, he goes, Santa's real. I go, no, Santa's not real, but the CIA is. So if you want to write a letter to the CIA, tell them to stop interfering in democratically elected
How old are you
governments.
then?
I'm saying this is the joke I
Oh,
do.
that's so
Yeah,
funny.
but the joke is like, write a letter to CIA, tell them to stop overthrowing governments that were democratically elected, so I don't have to come here 30 years later and burst your bubble, because that's what they do. Like, a lot of people point to that as the moment, and 53 was the moment when Iran could have possibly prospered under a democratically elected government. And again, listen, I won't. Like the Shah also did good and bad for Iran. Like a lot of it was good in terms of like westernization and modernization and bringing more wealth and power to the country. But really that overthrow is one of those moments where and now a lot of Iranians, because of that and because of the amount of the Brits getting the oil and all that stuff, a lot of Iranians are conspiracy theorists. So they even feel that Khomeini, they feel that Shah, there's a theory that goes on that says the Shah was taken out because the Americans felt that he was getting too powerful in the region, and so they helped get rid of him. They put Khomeini in, and if you look at after the Shah was gone, talk about instability, right? So ever since 79, you start getting even more instability in the region that you've had than before. So a lot of people point to that as another American playbook or Western playbook.
What is it? And by the way, the playbook that's going on right now with Syria is the exact same thing as what happened with Iran. What is the history of Israel and Iran?
History of Israel and Iran is interesting. So Iran actually, before the Iranian Revolution, Iran had the biggest population of Jews in the Middle East outside of Israel, because there's a lot of Persian Jews. And now in LA, there's a lot of Persian Jews.
Yeah, you'd often talked about how Ahmed would do jokes about racking Jews, and you'd be like, dude, there's a lot of Persian Jews out there. They get somewhat upset about those jokes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I would say a lot of the Iranians that I know are pretty secular. They're not like, they're Muslim by name, they're Jewish by name, but then there's some that are obviously more religious, and you have some Persian Jews who would consider themselves more Israeli than Iranian. Like, they hate the government of Iran just because of the government being this Islamic republic, right? So the history has been a little bit, there's been some conflict between, Israel and Iran. I mean, there's been a lot recently because of the religious thing. But even currently, I would say, because I don't think there's that many Jews in any of the other Arab countries in the region, I think even now there's more Jews in Iran. Iran is the second highest population of Jews in the Middle East are still in Iran, I believe, and they even have some in parliament and the sort. So the governments, I think, have always had conflict against one another. Iran obviously backs Hezbollah. They've helped arm them and fight the Jews and all that stuff. And that's the government stance. Again, I go back to the people. I think. Look, you're going to have, in America, we deal with racism every day, and you're going to have Iranians from both sides of the aisle being like, oh, it's the Persian Jews, oh, it's the Persian Muslims, calling each other names. But most people that I know seem to get along. I don't think that there's,
sure,
on the
dude.
personal level, there's no conflict. On that level, there is conflict. But then when you dig deeper sometimes, and I don't know the details of this, but sometimes when you dig deeper, sometimes there's arms deals being done between these countries where you go, wait a minute, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Shah had some sort of military deal going or arms deal going with Israel or something against Saddam Hussein. I'm not quite sure, but that's something for people to look up. But you do see that these people they're strange bedfellows. For example, right now, Saudi Arabia and Israel are strange bedfellows because they both want a weaker Iran.
Yep.
So they're pushing for America to be aggressive with Iran. So suddenly the Saudis and the Israelis, who, if you were to look at like on paper, or if you were to look at in the, I don't know if there's official Saudi government officials going like, oh, we are friends with Israel. I don't think they're able to say that.
It's very interesting, dude. They do a lot of arms deals together. Here's where we get in conspiracy world. There's a lot of interesting stuff that is discussed on the chat boards of the conspiracy places. I don't know if you've seen it right now. There's an investigation going on. They call it Obama Contra, that Obama had pulled the DEA off of investigating whether Hezbollah was selling drugs in the United States. There's a real, and CBS just ran on 60 Minutes this whole thing about how all these guys voted basically to take the teeth off the DEA to investigate really suspicious packages on things. So the whole theory is that now this is the conspiracy part of stuff that I've seen. Now the whole, how Trump says, oh, we're gonna pull out of Syria, and then a week later he bombs Syria, and everyone's like, okay, they got him. Now, this is what done a little research, and this is the conspiracy of what things people think is going on. So Obama does this deal with Iran, right?
Yeah, Iran.
And he sends them all this money that is actually their money. They free them up. I don't know if the money actually gets there. That's what I've heard. So this Uranium One deal goes down, which is the United States sells 10% of its uranium to the Russians through this weird back channel. There's a panel of 10 people. One is Obama. The other one is Hillary Clinton. Money is funneled through Hillary Clinton. Now, the conspiracy comes in that the belief is that this deal is done to set Russia up for something later on, and that some of this uranium makes its way to Iran. And that what was actually getting bombed them, because correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, you seem to know this stuff. We haven't bombed Syria since that weird kind of bombing that had happened.
Yeah, I think the second bombing we've bombed Syria, from at least publicly, from what I know, we've bombed them twice. That was the first time you saw those tapes.
You remember he did the big one, he did the big bomb, and that was it. Like,
it was an airport. Yeah,
I always say the Middle East is like a 25-year-old comic. He bombs, he doesn't care anymore, right?
Yeah.
They dropped the mother of all bombs.
It was funny to me because he was like, it just shows you how how ill-prepared this guy is to be where he is.
Right.
Because his comment was, oh my God, I saw that videotape and I thought, wow, some really bad stuff is going on there, or something like that. And I'm going, dude, nobody showed you that stuff's going on before?
Oh, dude. I mean, like, my whole theory is that he's just a puppet. They really are. I mean, I'll say this. I always say the difference between Obama and Trump is like your significant other is cheating on you.
Right.
Do you want to know or don't you want to know?
Yeah.
Because the more and more we see, take the kids in cages, right?
Yeah.
The kids in cages. Everyone's like, the kids are in cages. And it's like, yes, that is fucking tragic and wrong.
Yeah.
Well, the ACLU comes out, and do we agree the ACLU seems to have a little bit of honor to it, and it's a good thing? They come out and said that there's 60,000 instances of ICE under Obama separating kids, doing all this shit and doing all this crazy stuff.
Right.
And like it goes down to Obama, is he cheating on you? They don't tell you because you love him.
Right.
And then Trump does it, and then it's crazy. I like nobody. I'm just going to tell you, I'm on no side.
Right.
So the whole deal that this is that some of this uranium makes it to Iran.
Right.
And that they don't do it in Iran. Iran. They do it in Syria.
Uh-huh.
And they start developing these weapons in Syria.
Right.
And what was going to happen was they were going to come out once it's all made and be like, oh, shit, they have nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Who gave them the uranium? The Russians. And that's how it was going to be moved in to getting us to go. Because basically, our beef with Russian goes all the way back to who are the famous Kazakhstan? Who's the old tribe of Jews?
The SARS. Oh, you're talking about the
Khazars, right?
you're talking about the Ashkenazis.
Yeah,
Ashkenazi.
which is the old. They
Ashkenazi
were
Jews.
forced at one point to become. They had to choose between Muslim, Christian, or Judaism, and they picked Judaism. And they talk about how the Judaism numbers just doubled at one point. And nobody
Right.
knew why. Well, because all these guys became a part of that. But that's where the fight between Russia and basically the World Banking Organization. They
Right.
consistently kick out. And I also believe the Rothschilds are the boogeyman. That they're just the face
Right.
of this darkness. That's the face you put on. But it's really the Bank of International Settlements,
Right.
which is basically the bank that runs all the centralized banks.
Uh-huh.
If you're looking at Russia's in it, China's in it, and the United States, all these people hate each other. Their banks are all ran by the same people.
Right.
So the whole notion is that my whole point is that there are dark forces at work that kind of don't see us as people, don't see the Iranians as
Well,
people. don't see the
I
Syrians
think
as-
think that there are people who see the world differently than I do. For example, I think that some people like this whole thing with like the tax breaks and the there's two arguments. One is that if we give tax breaks, then people are going to go and reinvest that in employees and hire people and give them higher wages.
Right.
Or number
Trickle
two
down,
is
right?
trickle down. Or number two is they're just going to go buy more boats and houses. And I believe it's the latter.
Me too.
And I think there are people who see the world like you just said. Some people who go, like whenever I criticize Trump online about any policy of his, a lot of his defenders come down and go, oh yeah, well, what are the jobs looking like where you are? Or like, oh, I hope you're enjoying the better economy. And I go, wait a minute, you're saying you're willing to close your eyes to every other atrocity in the world just because you're going to make an extra $1,000 a year?
Did you see Rand Paul when he was on Wolf Blitzer's thing? And he's like, we sold these weapons to the Saudis. They are doing, the Yemen, it's like historical fucking human atrocities are going on. And Wolf Blitzer goes, well, if we don't sell them those helicopters, jobs are going to be lost. I'm like, how do you say that and sleep at night?
Yeah. Well, there was a great movie. It was called Why We Fight. It was a documentary about that whole Eisenhower era, and it was a good documentary, and it talks about the military-industrial complex. So half the time, they go, we have to go to war because we have these weapons that are sitting here doing nothing.
We
So
ran out of bombs, dude.
Yeah, we got to do something. I was in Oman doing shows, and Oman is a tiny country in the Gulf, and it's kind of like a laid-back beach community. Like you go there and you just hang out, and it's not that hardcore. And the leader of Oman, the emir or whatever, was visiting some hotel, and you saw like tanks and helicopters and all this stuff coming. And the guy who was taking me, the promoter goes, like 30 years ago or so, or whatever, 20, 30 years ago, he goes, that dude used to drive around town with like a couple of cars and a security, and that was it. And he goes, but the Americans convinced him he needs this level of security. So now everywhere he goes, it's like 3 choppers, all these tanks and shit. It's just crazy.
Dude, nothing's worse than when Obama was in LA and traffic would just like stop. And you're like, it's the worst.
Yeah.
I don't know how we fix the military-industrial problem we have.
Yeah.
We have a real problem here.
Yeah.
And, again, we're getting conspiracy world here. I believe that's why there's a whole push against freedom of speech. I think there's a whole push against, the Second Amendment. Because what people don't understand, this is me talking, not the guest, this is me talking, that our military is used as stormtroopers. There's no other country that is used like ours. I don't care what you say, maybe Israel, but it's not Australia, it's not England, it's our country. Our country is used as stormtroopers. We kick in doors, blazing 4-4s, and therefore the people who are telling you we need to disarm everything are the same people who are behind the atrocities in Syria and Yemen. And I'm sorry, dude. I mean, we got a media that tells us all these shootings and it's horrible, and they are horrible. I'm not doing that. But these are the same people that a year before that are like, cops are out of control. And then they're like, a year later, they're like, oh my God, cops should only have guns and stuff like that. To me, I think we have to watch ourselves, man, because the only way this is all going to be able to stop is if the U.S. population demands it. And, if you don't think that they'll get crazy with us, I mean, look what's going on in Yemen. Look what's going on in Syria. I mean, we're talking atrocities. I mean, dude, a million people dying from famine. I mean, like, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart when I watch what's going on. I can't, it's like comedically, it's making it really hard to go up and do stand-up right now because I see what the rest of the world's doing, and it's hard to do like, chicks are crazy jokes,
Well,
right?
You don't think there's a stand-up room on the Death Star? You don't think that the stormtroopers need to take their helmets off every now and then?
I think a couple of things. I think first of all, I think you can do stand-up if you are able to find a way to even just get that news item across. Like I did a bit in my special, in the immigrant special, where I was just talking about how Trump needs to take credit for his words. I go, even if you say you like the guy, you have to realize that his words embolden racists. So I took a moment it was very serious. There was no punchlines. And I go, for example, I believe that his words led to, and this happened, a man in Kansas taking a gun, going up to two Indian dudes sitting in a restaurant,
Sikhs,
shooting
right?
them. I don't know if they were Sikhs or not, but he shot two Indian dudes. They didn't have turbans. He just shot two Indian dudes, killed one, drove off to another bar and told the bartender, I just killed an Iranian. That's what he said. So in his mind, he just killed an Iranian. Why was he trying to kill an Iranian? Probably because he heard Trump say something about the Iran deal or whatever. Point being that I took that moment, and it was a serious moment on stage, and I brought that out, but then I was able to keep going into jokes. I think that you can work stuff out. Like, a lot of people don't know about the atrocities in Yemen because we hear Syria, we don't hear Yemen.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in Yemen. And so, listen, man, I think that you're right. There's a lot of, we got to look a little deeper behind stuff and like, why are some of these things happening? Why would somebody, have the self-interest of doing the things that they do, whether it's a Democrat or Republican or whatever?
Yeah.
That's a good question to ask.
I mean, dude, look at this. I mean, it's just, I don't know if you ever follow Lee Camp. He's on RT News, and he gets demonized for being on that. But, I mean, he brought that up, man. Once the nuclear, once the deal with Iran was, with North Korea was like kind of like, it's not done yet, but it's like, okay, we're moving forward. Noam Chomsky talks about how Trump conceded to one thing, which was, if you agree to denuclearize, we will stop running military exercises outside, which has always been the big part with North Korea. They're like, we'll do this, stop running military exercises. And they're always like, nah, fuck you, dude. We're running them.
Yeah.
You get, and he's like, no, dude, we're not going to do it unless, and for whatever, you got, if someone does something wrong, you got to give them shit. If someone does something well, you got to be like, okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And he said, I think we could work on that where we won't do these military exercises outside of what you're doing. But Lee Camp was saying that once this peace agreement was being moved forward, the stock prices of these military industrial companies dropped hard.
Right.
And it's like
war is good for them. War is good for the economy.
Good. Yeah, and it's bad, but it's like, why doesn't anyone look at that?
Yeah.
And go, it's like,
it's obvious. War is good for the economy. I mean, that's just what it is.
The war on terror is like the war. It's like the war on terror, the war on drugs, and now the war on space.
Yeah.
It's
Space.
just like they're all money grabs, dude.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, Maz, I love you to death. You got anything?
Yeah, to bring it full circle, I like that you're comedy and you use your platform to bring people together as opposed to, it's all about uniting. As it's easy to divide. And I like that. That's what the message that comes across what you've said today. So.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I was actually in Atlanta this past weekend, and
5 sold-out shows?
6 sold-out shows.
Oh,
we did well.
snap.
We did well. And there was a guy who came who I guess afterwards he was upset that I made Trump jokes, so he tweeted me a couple times, and he wanted me to explain stuff to him on Twitter. And then he's like, maybe next time we'll get a drink. And I was like, that's the only tweet I responded to. I go, you know what, bro? Yeah, let's get a drink. I'll tell you why I can't stand this guy. Yeah. And so, even when I make fun of him, I try to lead with like, look, I know some of you guys might have voted for him, and that's your deal, but here's why I don't like him. And I just tell people.
You know, you're allowed not to like him.
I
Just
don't
like
li- I
people
don't
are
like the
allowed
guy.
not to like Obama
Yeah.
and not to like. I don't really know any president. I could tell you, maybe outside of Carter, and I give me a little time, I'll find some war crimes that guy did too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just don't get into it. I'm a Ronin. I'm not in any party. All I want is love, and all I want is peace. And there's enough there's enough out there for everybody to get some, dude. And we shouldn't be our economy. I love the United States. It breaks my heart that our economy is built on the pain and suffering of brown people around the world. And it makes me pause and think maybe we got to change some shit and go through some dark shit to get done. Jobrani,
You're the John Lennon of conspiracy theories.
I'll be dead soon. I love you very much, dude. Thanks
Love you
for doing
too.
this.
Thanks,
man.
Sam. Thanks.